Captain Laura Bennett stood in the dark hallway of the abandoned space station. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. She held a flashlight in one hand and a scanner in the other. Behind her, Danny Pierce kept watch. He was her security officer and best friend on the ship. The station had been empty for many years. It belonged to a species called the Draken. They were large dragon-like creatures who valued strength above everything else. Laura and her crew came here looking for old equipment they could use. They did not expect to find anything alive. Then they heard a sound. It was small and sad, like a whimper. Laura followed the noise down a corridor filled with rust and broken machines. At the end, she found a cage. Inside the cage was something that broke her heart. It was a dragon, but not like the Draken she had seen in pictures. Those dragons were huge and powerful, with scales that shined like metal. This one was small, barely bigger than a large dog. His scales looked dull and patchy. One wing hung wrong, like it had been broken and healed badly. His tail was bent. When Laura's light touched him, he did not roar or show his teeth. He just curled into a tighter ball and made a soft crying sound. Danny checked his device. "It's a Draken, Captain. But I have never seen one so small. The others are much bigger." Laura knelt down next to the cage. She saw a metal tag around the creature's neck. Her computer chip in her head translated the words from Draken language to English. The tag said one word: useless. Laura felt anger rise in her chest. What kind of people would name a living thing useless? What kind of people would leave him here to die alone in the dark? "We are taking him with us," Laura said. Her voice was firm. Danny nodded. He knew better than to argue when Laura made that voice. Together, they opened the cage carefully. The small dragon did not fight them. He seemed to think this was just another prison, another place where he did not belong. Laura wrapped him in her jacket and carried him like a baby. He was lighter than she expected. Too light. He had not eaten enough for a long time. On the ship, Dr. Helen Carter looked at the dragon with gentle hands. She was the ship's doctor and knew how to treat many species. She ran tests and scans while Laura stood nearby. The dragon watched Laura with big golden eyes. They were beautiful eyes, full of fear, but also something else. Hope, maybe. Or just curiosity about why someone was being kind. Helen finished her examination and looked sad. "He has many problems, Captain. He has not eaten well for a long time. He is very thirsty. That wing was broken long ago and nobody fixed it right. Also, someone changed his body with science. They tried to make him different. Probably tried to make him bigger or stronger. But it did not work. The changes failed. That is why he is small and has these bent parts." Laura touched the dragon's head softly. His scales felt rough under her fingers. "Can you help him?" "I can help with the food and water problems. I can heal some of the injuries. But the body changes are too deep. He will never be like other Draken. He will always be small. He will always have that bad wing." "That is okay," Laura said quietly. She looked into those golden eyes. He does not need to be like them. He just needs to be healthy and safe. The dragon made a small sound. It was not a sound of pain or fear this time. It was different. It was like he was asking a question. Could this be real? Could someone actually care about him? Laura smiled. "Yes, little one. This is real. You are safe now." She decided to keep calling him by the name on his tag. Not because she thought he was useless, but because she wanted him to know that names did not define worth. She wanted him to take that name and make it mean something new, something better. The first days were hard. Useless would not eat unless Laura was in the room. Even then, he ate like the food might disappear. He ate fast and looked around nervously. When other crew members came near, he would hide in the corner. He made himself as small as possible, like he was trying to disappear. Laura learned about Draken culture from the ship's computer. What she learned made her angry. The Draken believed that only strong dragons deserved to live. Small dragons, weak dragons, or dragons with problems were killed as babies. They thought these dragons were mistakes that needed to be removed. Someone had kept Useless alive, but only to do experiments on him. They wanted to fix his problems with science. When that did not work, they left him in that cage to die slowly. Every day, Laura spent hours sitting with Useless. She did not try to touch him if he seemed scared. She just sat and talked. She told him about Earth, the planet where humans came from. She told him about the oceans and mountains. She told him about dogs and cats, animals that humans loved even though they were not perfect. She told him that humans learned long ago that love was not about perfection. Slowly, day by day, Useless began to change. He started to come closer when Laura visited. One day he put his head on her knee. Laura felt tears in her eyes. She scratched behind the small ridges over his eyes and he made a rumbling sound. Helen said that sound meant he was happy. The big change came when Sophie Martinez brought a toy to the ship. Sophie was the ship's engineer. She had a daughter back on Earth. The toy was a simple rubber ball, red and squeaky. Sophie thought it might make Useless laugh. She threw it gently across the room. Useless's eyes locked on the ball. His body tensed. Then something amazing happened. He jumped for the ball. He grabbed it in his mouth. When he bit down, it made a squeak sound. Useless looked so happy. He threw the ball up and caught it. Then he looked at Sophie with bright eyes. "Want me to throw it again?" Sophie asked, holding out her hand. Useless dropped the ball in her hand. His bent tail was wagging. From that day on, Useless started to play. He chased balls around the ship. He explored boxes. He learned to play a game where he pulled on one end of a rope, while Danny pulled the other. Helen gave him special treats when he let her check his health. Kevin, the navigator, found out that Useless loved having his belly rubbed, but Laura was his favorite. Useless followed her everywhere. He slept in her room. He watched her with eyes full of love. She had saved him. She had shown him that he had value just by being alive. That was something the Draken had never taught him. That was something only humans understood. 3 months passed since Laura found Useless in that dark station. Life on the ship had become normal. Useless was now part of the crew. Everyone loved him. He brought joy to their long journey through space. But soon, something would happen that would test everything they had built together. The ship's communication system made a loud beeping sound. Laura was on the bridge looking at star maps with Kevin. She pressed a button to answer the call. What she heard surprised her. "This is Commander Chakra Ironscale of the Draken warship Talon of Supremacy. We have engine failure. We need help. Please respond." Danny looked at Laura with worried eyes. "Captain, this might be a trick. The Draken do not ask others for help. They think asking for help is weak." Laura understood his worry, but she also heard real fear in that voice. "We help people who need it. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us different from them." She pressed the button. "Commander Chakra, this is Captain Laura Bennett. We are coming to help you." The Draken ship was huge. It was 10 times bigger than Laura's ship. When they got close, Laura could see the damage. The engines were broken and leaking. The ship was drifting toward a field of space rocks. If they hit those rocks, everyone on the ship would die. Laura made a choice. Useless stays in my room with the door locked. I do not want the Draken to see him. They would hurt him. She told the computer to lock her door from the outside. Useless could not open it even if he tried. Then she took Danny and Sophie to the Draken ship. They used the transport beam that turned them into light and sent them across space. The Draken ship was impressive inside. Everything was made of dark metal and red stone. Commander Chakra met them in a large room. She was massive, maybe 20 feet tall, with scales like black glass. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. Behind her stood other Draken warriors, all huge and powerful. "Thank you for coming, Captain Bennett," Chakra said. Her voice was deep and strong. "I know our people do not have friendship, but I'm grateful." Laura nodded. "Let's fix your engines. Then we can talk about friendship." Sophie and her team worked with the Draken engineers. The problem was complicated, but Sophie was very smart. After 4 hours, the engines were fixed. The Draken ship could fly again. They were safe. Chakra wanted to give Laura a gift to say thank you. They went to a ceremony room. Laura was tired and wanted to go back to her ship. She missed Useless. She knew he would be worried because she was gone so long. But then something bad happened. On Laura's ship, Useless woke from his nap. He heard strange voices through the walls. He could not hear Laura's voice. Fear filled his heart. Where was she? Was she safe? He had to find her. Useless was smart. He had watched the crew use doors many times. He jumped up and hit the door button with his paw. The door opened. Laura had told the computer to lock it, but Useless hit the emergency override button by accident. The door slid open. He ran through the ship, following Laura's scent. It led him to the transport room. A crew member was there, watching screens. Useless ran past him and jumped onto the transport platform. This was where Laura went. This was how he could reach her. "No, wait," the crew member shouted, but he was also watching an alarm on another screen. He turned to check it. His hand hit the transport button by mistake. Blue light covered Useless. Then he was gone. On the Draken ship, Laura was saying goodbye to Chakra. "We are glad we could help," she said. Then blue light appeared next to her. Useless materialized on the transport pad. He chirped with relief and ran to Laura, wrapping himself around her legs. "Useless, no," Laura said quietly, but her voice was full of fear now. "You should not be here." The reaction was fast. Chakra's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened in shock and disgust. The other Draken warriors stepped back. Some made angry growling sounds. One warrior actually pulled out his weapon. "What is that thing?" Chakra demanded. Her voice was filled with hate. "What is that abomination doing on my ship?" Useless felt the hate. He felt the disgust. He pressed himself against Laura's legs and tried to make himself small. All his old fears came back. These were his people. These were Draken like him. And they hated him. They hated him for being born wrong. Laura felt Useless shaking. She felt his terror. Something fierce and protective woke up inside her. She had spent 3 months teaching this dragon that he had value. She would not let anyone take that away from him. Not even his own people. She stood up straight and looked Chakra in the eyes. "This is Useless. I found him on one of your abandoned stations. He was in a cage. He was starving. Someone left him there to die alone in the dark." A Draken officer stepped forward. His scales were dark red. "Good. That is where defects belong. He is a genetic mistake. He makes our species look weak. The weak must die so the strong can live. That is our way." Laura's hand moved to rest on Useless's head. He leaned into her touch even though he was scared. "Your way is wrong," she said. Her voice was cold and hard. "My species should have died long ago if we followed your rules. Humans are not strong like you. We cannot fly. We cannot breathe fire. We are small and weak and we break easily, but we are still here. Do you know why?" Chakra's eyes narrowed. "Tell me." "Because we learned something you did not. We learned that strength is not just about size or power. Real strength is about protecting those who need protection. Real strength is about lifting up those who fall down. Real strength is about seeing value in every life." Laura scratched behind Useless's eye ridges. Despite his fear, he made his happy rumbling sound. "This dragon has more courage than all of you. He survived being abandoned. He survived experiments. He survived being told every day that he was worthless. And then he learned to trust again. He learned to love again. That takes strength you cannot even imagine." The room was silent. Even the angry red warrior had nothing to say. Then Chakra did something strange. She laughed. It was a deep sound that filled the room. "You are either very brave or very stupid, Captain Bennett. Maybe you are both." Chakra's eyes softened just a little. "But I am starting to understand why humans have spread so far across the galaxy. You are weak in body but strong in spirit." She knelt down. Her huge head came level with Useless. He shook with fear, but he did not hide. He stayed pressed against Laura, but he looked at Chakra with his golden eyes. "You have found a champion, little one," Chakra said. Her voice was not kind, but it was not cruel either. It was thoughtful. "Perhaps you are not so useless after all. Perhaps there is strength in surviving what would kill others. Perhaps there is strength in being different." Chakra stood up and looked at her crew. "Let them go. We owe them a debt. They saved our lives. If they want to keep this small dragon, that is their choice." Laura picked up Useless and held him close. She could feel his heart beating fast against her chest. "Thank you, Commander." As they transported back to their ship, Laura whispered to Useless, "You are safe. I will always keep you safe." Back on their ship, the crew gathered around. Everyone wanted to make sure Useless was okay. He was shaken but unharmed. That night, he curled up extra close to Laura in her bed. He had faced his worst fear. He had faced the hate of his own people, and he survived it because Laura was there. Because he was loved, the encounter changed something in Useless. He realized that the Draken opinion did not matter. What mattered was the family he had found. What mattered was that Laura and the crew saw his value. From that day forward, Useless walked with his head a little higher. He was starting to believe what Laura had been telling him all along. He was not useless. He was exactly who he needed to be. After the meeting with Commander Chakra, life on the ship changed for Useless. He was different now, more confident. He started exploring the ship without Laura by his side. He would walk down hallways alone, stopping to greet crew members. He chirped at them and they would pet him or give him treats. He was not afraid anymore. His favorite place was the observation deck. This was a room with huge windows that showed the stars outside. Useless would press his nose against the glass and watch space go by. Sometimes he would sit there for hours, just looking at the beauty of the universe. Laura often found him there, dreaming of things only he knew. One day, Helen came to Laura's office with an excited look on her face. She carried a data pad with lots of information on it. "Captain, I need to show you something about Useless." Laura looked up from her reports. "Is something wrong? Is he sick?" "No, nothing like that. I have been studying his body, trying to understand what the experiments did to him. I found something interesting in his brain." Helen showed Laura the scan images. "See this part here? This is the area that helps with knowing where things are in space. In normal Draken, this part is normal size. In Useless, it is 3 times bigger." Laura leaned forward to look at the images. "What does that mean?" "I think whoever did the experiments was trying to create something special. They failed to make him big and strong, but they accidentally made something else. I think Useless can sense things in space that our computers cannot detect. Things like holes in space, dangerous areas, or even ships that are far away." It sounded impossible, but Helen was very smart. Laura trusted her. "How can we test this?" They started with simple tests. The crew would hide objects around the ship. Then they would bring Useless to the starting point and see if he could find them. Every single time he found the hidden objects, he would walk directly to them without searching. It was like he knew exactly where they were. Kevin suggested a bigger test. "Let me plot a course near that spatial distortion we mapped last week. It is not dangerous, but our sensors can detect it. Let us see if Useless can sense it before we get there." They tried it. Kevin set the course and did not tell anyone when they would reach the distortion. But an hour before they got there, Useless became nervous. He paced back and forth, he whined. He kept going to the navigation station and pawing at the console. "He knows," Sophie said with wonder in her voice. "He can sense it." Laura knelt down next to Useless. "Can you show us, little one? Can you show us where the danger is?" Useless cocked his head. His golden eyes were bright with intelligence. He understood. He walked to the navigation console and put his paw on the screen. The computer read his touch and showed a map. Useless moved his paw, changing the path they were flying. The new path went around the distortion, but by a wider distance than Kevin had planned. Kevin studied the new route. "This is better than my plan. This path is safer and actually shorter." How did he know? From that day on, Useless became part of the bridge crew. He could not speak words, but he could communicate. He used his paws on the computer screens. He used body language. The crew learned to read his signals. When he became nervous, they knew to check their sensors carefully. When he seemed happy and relaxed, they knew the path ahead was safe. He found shortcuts through space that saved them days of travel. He detected a tiny crack in the ship's hull that would have become a huge problem if not fixed quickly. He even warned them about another ship approaching hours before their sensors picked it up. That ship turned out to be pirates, but because of Useless's warning, they had time to prepare and escape. The crew stopped thinking of him as just a pet. He was a valuable member of the team. He had a job. He had a purpose, but he was still their friend. Danny still played tug-of-war with him. Helen still gave him treats. Sophie still threw his ball. And Laura still scratched behind his eye ridges every night before sleep. One evening, the whole crew gathered in the mess hall for dinner. It was Danny's birthday. They had cake and music. Useless lay on the floor next to Laura's chair, his belly full of treats. He looked around at all the smiling faces. These people loved him. They valued him. Not because he was perfect, but because he was himself. Danny raised his cup. "I want to make a toast to Useless. The Draken threw him away because he was not what they wanted, but he turned out to be exactly what we needed." Everyone cheered and clinked their cups together. Useless's tail wagged. He made his happy rumbling sound. Laura reached down and stroked his head. "You are special, little one. You always were. It just took the right people to see it." Later that night, Laura sat in her room reading a book. Useless was curled up on her bed, but he was not sleeping. He was watching her with those intelligent golden eyes. She put her book down and looked at him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. He chirped a questioning sound. Then he got up and walked to the window. He looked out at the stars. Laura joined him. Together they stood in silence, watching the universe pass by. "You know," Laura said, "when I first saw you in that cage, I thought I was saving you. But maybe you saved me too. Maybe you saved all of us. You reminded us why we explore space. Not for money or glory, but to find beauty in unexpected places. To find value in things others overlook. Useless leaned against her leg. His body was warm. His scales had become shinier since they started feeding him properly. His bent wing would never be perfect, but it was stronger now. He was healthy. He was happy. He was loved. Helen had told Laura something else in private. She said that based on Useless's biology, he would live for a very long time. Draken could live for hundreds of years. Useless might outlive Laura. Might outlive everyone on this ship. But Helen also said that Useless had bonded with Laura in a special way. He had imprinted on her like baby birds imprint on their mothers. She was his whole world. Laura tried not to think about that. She tried not to think about a future where she would not be here to protect him. Instead, she focused on now. On this moment. On the small dragon pressed against her leg, trusting her completely. Whatever happens, she whispered, you will always be wanted. You will always be valued. I will make sure of that. Useless looked up at her and chirped softly. It was a sound of contentment. A sound of trust. A sound of love. The next morning brought new adventures. They received a signal from a distant planet. It was a distress call from a human colony. Something was wrong with their food supply. They needed help urgently. Laura immediately set course for the planet. As they traveled, Useless sat at his usual spot on the bridge. He watched the navigation screen carefully. Suddenly, he became alert. He pawed at the screen, showing Laura something. There was a faster route. A shortcut through a region of space that was not on their maps. Are you sure? Laura asked him. Our maps say that area is dangerous, Useless chirped firmly. He was sure. The maps were wrong or outdated. He could sense that the path was safe. Kevin looked uncertain. Captain, I do not know about this. We have no data on that region. Laura looked at Useless. She looked into those golden eyes that had never steered them wrong. I trust him. Set course for the route he is showing us. Kevin obeyed, though he looked nervous. They entered the unknown region carefully. Their sensors were on full alert. But Useless was calm and relaxed. He knew they were safe. The shortcut saved them 12 hours of travel time. Because of that, they reached the colony in time to help. The people there were saved because Useless had known the safe path. Because Laura had trusted him. As they left the colony, the governor sent them a message. Thank you, Captain Bennett. You saved 3,000 lives today. We will never forget you. But Laura knew the truth. Useless had saved them. The small dragon that his own people called worthless had saved 3,000 lives. If the Draken could see him now, what would they think? Would they still call him useless? Would they still think he should have died? Laura did not care what they thought anymore. She knew the truth. Useless was special. He was valuable. He was exactly what the universe needed him to be. 9 months had passed since Laura found Useless in that dark cage. The ship's communication system made its familiar beeping sound one afternoon. Laura was teaching Useless a new game where he had to find hidden treats. She pressed the button to answer the call, not expecting anything unusual. The face that appeared on the screen was Commander Chakra Ironscale. Laura felt surprise run through her body. Why would Chakra contact them again? Captain Bennett, Chakra said. Her voice was formal but not unfriendly. I am sending you an official invitation. You and your crew are invited to Draknor, our homeworld. We wish to honor you with a ceremony for saving the Talon of Supremacy. Laura's mind raced. This was huge. The Draken had been isolated from other species for decades. They did not trust outsiders. They especially did not trust humans whom they saw as weak. This invitation was important. It could change relations between their species. But there was a problem. A big problem. Thank you, Commander, Laura said carefully. We are honored, but I must tell you something. Useless will be coming with us. He goes where I go. There was a long silence. Chakra's face was unreadable. Finally, she spoke. I understand. The ceremony is in 3 weeks. We will expect you. The screen went dark. Danny immediately spoke up. Captain, this is dangerous. If we bring Useless to their homeworld, every Draken will see him. Some will want him dead. I know, Laura said. She looked at Useless, who was waiting patiently for their game to continue. But I will not hide him. I will not pretend he does not exist to make them comfortable. If they want to honor us, they have to accept all of us." Sophie nodded. "We are with you, Captain. All of us." That evening, Laura sat with Useless in her quarters. She needed to explain what was about to happen. She knew he understood more than most people realized. His intelligence had become obvious over the months. "Useless," she said gently. "We have been invited to your homeworld, to Draknor. But if we go, everyone will see you. Thousands of Draken will know you exist. Some will hate you for it. Some will think you should not be alive. Are you ready for that?" Useless tilted his head. He looked at her with those wise, golden eyes. Then he did something that made Laura's heart feel full of pride. He stood up and spread his wings. The left wing that had been broken so badly was stronger now. Helen had worked hard to help it heal. The wing would never be perfect. It would never let him fly like other Draken. But it was his wing, and he wore it with pride. He chirped once firmly. The sound was clear and strong. Yes. He was ready. Laura hugged him. "That is my brave dragon." The next 3 weeks passed quickly. The crew prepared for the journey to Draknor. They studied Draken customs and language. They wanted to be respectful, even if the Draken had not always been respectful to them. Helen made sure Useless was in perfect health. Sophie made him a special harness that was comfortable but looked dignified. Kevin plotted the safest course to Draknor. And Useless practiced something in secret with Laura. It was something they had worked on for months, though Laura never thought they would actually get to show anyone. It was a surprise. Finally, the day came. They arrived at Draknor. The planet was beautiful in a harsh way. Red rocks covered the surface. 3 moons hung in the purple sky. The temperature was hot, much hotter than humans preferred. Laura was glad they had brought cooling equipment. A shuttle brought them down to the surface. As they stepped out, Laura saw the grand arena. It was massive, carved from red stone that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Thousands of Draken filled the seats. They were all sizes and colors. Black scales, red scales, green scales, gold scales. All of them huge, all of them powerful, and then Laura walked out onto the arena floor with her crew behind her. The crowd went silent. They were watching. Useless walked beside Laura. His head was high. His bent tail was steady. He wore his harness with dignity. When the crowd saw him, the reaction was immediate. Gasps, growls, some cries of anger, but Chakra stood in the center of the arena, and her presence demanded silence. "I called you here to honor Captain Laura Bennett and her crew," Chakra announced. Her voice carried to every corner of the huge arena. "They saved my ship and my crew when we were in danger. But I also called you here for another reason, to teach you something these humans taught me." She gestured toward Useless. Many Draken looked away in disgust. Some covered their young one's eyes. This one was left to die, thrown away. I myself would have ordered his death if I had found him as a hatchling. I believed he was worthless. I believed the weak had no place among us. Chakra walked closer to Useless. The small dragon stood his ground, though Laura could see the slight tremble in his legs. But the humans saw differently. They saw value where we saw garbage. They saw strength where we saw weakness. And do you know what happened? She turned to face the crowd. This small dragon has saved the human ship 7 times in the past 6 months. He can sense danger in space that their computers cannot detect. He finds safe paths through regions others fear to travel. He saved 3,000 human lives just last month because he knew a shortcut to a colony in need. A young Draken female stood up in the crowd. But look at him. He is deformed. His wing is bent. His tail is crooked. He will never fly like we do. He will never hunt like we do. He will never be what a Draken should be. Laura felt the moment had come. She looked at Useless and nodded. This was what they had practiced for. This was his moment. Useless stepped forward into the center of the arena. The crowd watched with hostile eyes. He spread his wings as wide as they would go. They trembled, but they held steady. Then he began to run. His gait was awkward. His bent tail did not help with balance like a normal tail would, but there was determination in every step, purpose in every movement. He ran faster and faster across the arena floor. He could not fly. His wings could never carry him high into the clouds like they carried other Draken. His body was too heavy for his small wings. His broken wing could not provide enough lift. But something else happened. Something beautiful. As he ran, his wings caught the wind. His feet left the ground. For brief, glorious moments he glided. He soared low over the arena floor, maybe 3 feet off the ground. He landed and leaped again, achieving another glide, then another. It was not flight as the Draken knew it, but it was his own form of grace, his own way of touching the sky, his own way of proving that there was more than one way to soar. The arena was silent as Useless completed his run. He came to rest in front of Chakra, his sides heaving from effort, but his eyes were bright, brighter than Laura had ever seen them. He had done it. He had shown them what he could do. Then something unexpected happened. One Draken in the crowd started to clap, then another, then more. Soon half the arena was applauding. The other half looked angry or confused, but enough Draken saw the truth. They saw courage. They saw determination. They saw a different kind of strength. Chakra knelt before Useless. She touched her snout to his, a gesture of deep respect among Draken. "You have shown us something important today, little warrior. You have shown us that strength comes in many forms. From this day forward you shall be known as Sky Touch, for you have touched the heavens in your own way." The crowd cheered louder. Laura felt tears in her eyes. Her little dragon had won their hearts. But later, after the ceremony was over and they were preparing to leave, Laura sat with Useless in their shuttle. She scratched behind his eye ridges. "They gave you a new name," she said softly. "Sky Touch. It is a good name, a strong name. You do not have to be useless anymore." Useless opened one golden eye. He chirped, a warm sound full of humor and love. Laura understood. He knew who he was. Names were just words. What mattered was not what people called him. What mattered was the love that surrounded him, the crew that was his family, the human woman who had seen value in him when nobody else had. He was useless. He would always be useless. But now that name meant something new. It meant survivor. It meant valuable. It meant loved. After the ceremony on Draknor, news about Useless spread across the galaxy. Some species thought the story was inspiring. Others thought humans were foolish for caring about a defective dragon. But the story reached everywhere. The small dragon who learned to glide became famous. Laura did not care about fame. She cared about keeping life normal for Useless. But things could never be completely normal again. 3 weeks after they left Draknor, something arrived at the ship that changed everything. It was a small Draken shuttle. Inside was a young Draken female, barely an adult. Her scales were pale blue, which was rare. She asked to speak with Captain Bennett. When Laura met her, the young dragon seemed nervous. "My name is Vera," she said quietly. "I saw what happened at the arena. I saw Useless glide. I need to ask you something important." Laura gestured for her to sit, though the furniture was too small for her. Vera settled on the floor. "What is your question?" "I have a brother," Vera said. Her voice cracked with emotion. "He was born small like Useless. My parents hid him. They could not bring themselves to kill him, but they cannot let anyone know he exists. He lives in a hidden room in our house. He has never seen the sky. Never played, never had a real life." Laura's heart broke. "How old is he?" 5 years old. Still a child. But if anyone finds out about him, they will take him away. They will kill him." Tears ran down Vera's scaled face. "I watched Useless in that arena. I watched him show everyone that being different does not mean being worthless. And I thought, maybe there is hope for my brother. Maybe you could help him too." Laura did not have to think about her answer. "Bring him here. We will protect him." 2 days later, Vera returned with a small bundle wrapped in blankets. When she unwrapped it, Laura saw another dwarf dragon. He was even smaller than Useless had been when they found him. His scales were the same pale blue as his sister's. His eyes were huge and frightened. Useless approached slowly. He chirped softly, a gentle greeting. The young dragon stared at him in wonder. He had never seen another dragon like himself. Never knew others like him existed. "This is Hope," Vera said. She had given her brother a human name. "Please take care of him. Please show him that life can be good." Laura promised she would. Vera left with tears in her eyes, but they were tears of relief. Her brother would finally have a chance at life. Useless took to Hope immediately. He became like a big brother even though he was not much bigger. He showed Hope how to play with the ball. He taught him that crew members were friends, not threats. He showed him the observation deck where they could watch the stars together. Helen examined Hope and found the same story. Genetic experiments, failed modifications, a body that would never match Draken ideals. But she also found that Hope had his own special ability. He could sense emotions. When someone was sad, Hope would know and go to comfort them. When someone was angry, he would stay away until they calmed down. It was like he could feel what others felt. Another gift born from their failed experiments, Helen said. They tried to create perfect warriors. Instead, they created something more valuable. They created dragons with special minds. Over the next months, more dwarf dragons came. Word spread through secret Draken channels. Parents who had hidden their small children. Adults who had survived by hiding their whole lives. They came to Laura's ship seeking refuge. Laura could not take them all. Her ship was not big enough. But she could do something else. She contacted the human government and told them what was happening. She asked for help. The response was swift. Humanity had always valued the rejected and the lost. It was part of their nature. They created a sanctuary planet called Haven. It was a world with a good climate, plenty of food, and safety. They invited all dwarf dragons to come live there. They would be protected. They would be valued. They would be free. Chakra heard about Haven. She sent a message to Laura. "You have done something remarkable, Captain. You have not only saved lives, you have changed minds. Some Draken are angry about Haven, but others are starting to question our old ways. You have planted seeds of change." 2 years after finding Useless, Laura stood on Haven watching 30 dwarf dragons play in a field. Some were children. Some were adults who had hidden for decades. All of them were free now. All of them were happy. Useless stood beside her, watching the others with pride. Hope was playing with 3 other young dragons, chasing each other in circles. Their laughter filled the air. "You did this," Laura said to Useless. "You showed everyone that different does not mean worthless. You changed the world." Useless chirped and leaned against her leg. He did not care about changing worlds. He just cared about being with Laura, about being loved, about having a home, but Laura was right. He had changed things. Haven grew. More dragons came. Eventually, some Draken began to change their laws. Not all of them. Not quickly. But slowly, the idea spread that maybe strength came in different forms. Maybe perfection was not the only thing worth valuing. Young Draken who met Useless and the others started to question. If these small dragons could be valuable, what else had their society been wrong about? What other strengths had they overlooked in their pursuit of physical perfection? 5 years after the rescue, Laura received a message from the Draken High Council. They wanted to establish formal relations with humanity. They wanted to learn more about human values. They admitted that maybe they had been wrong about some things. It was a small step. But it was a step. Laura was older now. Gray touched her hair. She had spent 5 years caring for dwarf dragons and building Haven. She was tired, but she was happy. Useless was still by her side. He was fully grown now, as big as he would ever get, which was still small by Draken standards. His scales had become bright and healthy. His bent wing was strong, even if it could never be straight. He glided often, teaching the young dragons how to find their own way of touching the sky. One evening, Laura and Useless sat on a hill on Haven, watching the sunset. 3 moons hung in the sky, similar to Draknor but softer somehow. Gentler. "Do you remember that cage?" Laura asked softly. "Do you remember how scared you were?" Useless chirped. Of course he remembered. But those memories did not hurt anymore. They were just part of his story. Part of what made him who he was. "I thought I was saving you," Laura said. "But I think you saved me too." "You reminded me why I became an explorer. Not to find new worlds or new resources, but to find beauty in unexpected places. To find value in things others overlook." She stroked his head. "You taught me that the most important discoveries are not planets or minerals. They are connections. Love, family. Those are the things worth traveling across the galaxy for." Useless looked up at her with his golden eyes. So much wisdom lived in those eyes now, so much experience. He had gone from a terrified creature in a cage to a confident dragon who had changed the fate of his entire species. But to Laura, he would always be her little dragon, the one who taught her about true strength, the one who showed her that love could heal even the deepest wounds. As the sun set on Haven, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, young dragons began their evening glides. They ran across the fields and caught the wind, soaring low over the grass. Not flying but gliding, finding their own way to touch the sky. Useless watched them with pride. Each one of them existed because he had survived, because he had shown the galaxy that different did not mean worthless, because a human woman had looked into a dark cage and seen value where others saw garbage. "Come on," Laura said, standing up. "Let us go home. Dinner will be ready soon." They walked down the hill together, the woman and her dragon, surrounded by the sound of joyful chirps and beating wings. Behind them, the sun finished setting and the stars began to appear. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers, full of beauty and cruelty. But in this moment on this planet there was peace, there was joy, there was love, and there was a small dragon named Useless who had learned the most important truth in the universe. Value is not given by others. It is inherent in every living being. You just need someone to see it, someone to believe in you, someone to love you as you are. Laura had been that someone for Useless, and in being that for him, she had changed not just his life but the lives of hundreds of dragons who came after. She had challenged an entire species to rethink their values. She had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not technology or weapons, but compassion. As they reached the settlement, other crew members called out greetings. Danny was teaching young dragons to play tug-of-war. Sophie was showing them how to use simple tools. Helen was giving medical checkups. Kevin was pointing out constellations to a group of fascinated youngsters. Useless made his happy rumbling sound. This was home. This was family. This was where he belonged, Laura smiled. Sometimes the best things in life came from the darkest places. Sometimes the greatest treasures were the ones others threw away. Sometimes the smallest creatures taught the biggest lessons. And sometimes, a human woman and a dwarf dragon named Useless could change the galaxy, one act of kindness at a time. The end of their story was really just the beginning of Haven, the beginning of change in Draken society, the beginning of better understanding between species.